I swear I can't see that.
This is a meeting of Township Committee, October 5th, 2020. Those required provided for the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied. Notice that this meeting was properly given by transmission to the Star Ledger, the Independent, and the Trooper Times, and by posting at the Middletown Township Municipal Building, the Township Journal on January 9th, 2020. Committeeman Hybel. Committeeman Sedambrino.
Here.
Committeewoman Snell.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Fiore.
Here.
Mayor Perry.
Here.
Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence to honor the troops who serve worldwide, defending our constitutions, freedoms, and way of life. Thank you. Our first item on tonight's agenda, we have a proclamation recognizing September 27, 2020 as Gold Star Mothers and Families Day in Middletown Township for the record. At this time, I'd like to ask the Township Committee if you'd like to adopt a consent agenda, which would include resolutions 20-206 through 20-110.
Motion to approve consent agenda. Second.
Committeeman Hybel.
Yes.
Committeeman Sedambrino.
Yes.
Committeewoman Snell.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fiore.
Yes.
Mayor Perry.
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt a consent agenda. Tonight's discussion items, we'll begin with the beach use, lifeguard, student protection, and parking planning for 2021.
Yeah, I think Janet should be on.
I think she is.
Find it, yes.
Here.
Yes, Janet's on.
Hey, Janet.
Hey.
So I sent you an email with kind of an update primarily on what's been happening with Ideal Beach, the discussions we've been having, and the planning we're putting in place for next year in terms of parking, beach badges, lifeguards. Right now, we're in the process of kind of costing all this out and to see what sort of revenue what sort of budget allocation would we need to do that, and then what sorts of revenue would we need to try to generate where to help cover the costs of that. So parking and beach badges are one of those items, or among those items. So that's specifically the Ideal Beach. Janet also prepared a memo, which I attached and sent to everyone, that talks about just a series of other kind of cleanup items in our Parks and Recreation regulations. Now, Janet, there's a few that you want to highlight that we ought to talk about, or you just want some direction on. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks. So if you're looking at the memo that I sent you, on the second page, there's G. Letter G, it talks about participation in a public assemblage is prohibited, with the exception of special permit obtained from the Department of Recreation. I wasn't sure if we should really be the ones that are, allowing to permit this. That's one thing I wanted to talk about. Would you prefer me to go through them all? Do you want to talk as we go?
Let's just do hit one as they come up. That way we can focus on those things, I think. That's okay. I mean, the thing that we were caught with this year, we haven't had much experience with this, obviously, and maybe we won't in future years, but maybe we will, are parks being used for rallies, civic kind of rallies, whether they be political or however you want to describe them. We certainly have a few of those, and we obviously have one at the school property as well. So the question, we don't really address it in our rules and regulations and how to deal with it. One of the things we've encountered this year in particular is a significant cost for police overtime.
Right.
Once we know these events are going to happen, even if we can clear out the other uses in the park, like a Bodman, we've had a few times where the potential, the proposed event conflicted with other people who already had events planned at the park. So we were able to kind of work around those. But either way, when you're going to get 50 to 100 people, you have to have some police presence. particularly if they're going to be marching, which we had happen. So those ended up costing us, $7,000 to $8,000, even $10,000 for each event in overtime. That's significant. But obviously we could charge people, but then the argument would be, well, I have a right to
Violating my First Amendment right.
Assemble, and so you really can't charge me an unreasonable fee for that.
Haven't we had this discussion? Brian O'Brien has spoken about this in the past, that we don't have any real jurisdiction over somebody's right to protest, or?
I mean, you can put only reasonable regulations on the time, place, and manner. It's very hard to charge for police overtime. So, I mean, you would have more discretion to regulate, marches and public roadways and things of that nature than in a public park, where arguably, shouldn't be as significant of security issues and so forth, as if you need to shut a roadway down to make sure people aren't getting hit by cars. But it's a very delicate and tricky balancing act for sure.
Don't they need to file for a permit to do that?
Well, yeah, even that's not clear. I mean, the normal use of a park, if someone were, Janet can jump in at any point, but if someone's going to have a picnic, for example, then yeah, sure, they'd apply for a permit, they'd reserve the space for their picnic, and presumably they would utilize the parking lot. Situation we had with, I think, one of the first protests we had there, or rallies, I guess we would call it, is that there was a picnic planned for that day and that time. And it really wouldn't have been fair to the people who pay for a permit to have their picnic, to have all the parking spaces taken up by people who just decided to show up and have a rally. Unfortunately, we were able to, they were agreeable to switching things around a little bit, and it didn't overlap too much, so we didn't have that big of a problem. But if they hadn't been willing to switch, then what would we have done? I think that Brian and I had a conversation about that. Hey, if the park's already reserved, then no, you can't go there. That's why we would want to require a permit. Say, yes, you can assemble here, but if there was 5 baseball games going on in the park, you couldn't say, well, now you can go have a rally.
Correct.
Because it's just unreasonable. It's overused. Pick another place.
Right.
So we need something in our ordinances to give us a little bit of, ability to control when and where it happens. But obviously, we can't say no. We're not looking to say no. We just need to control and regulate it in some way. And then the question is, should it be even go through recreation as a recreation permit, or is it more police?
I think it's more police, to be fair.
Yeah.
They could have a protest here at Town Hall.
I think it's got to be a number of occupants, number of participant threshold. And if it's under a certain threshold, it stays in recreation. If it's over a certain threshold, then they require police overtime, then it goes to police.
I mean, the thing is that I think that, recreation processes, permits, maintains the calendar, right? So if it's a recreational facility that kind of falls under their umbrella, they're going to have to be involved, right? So obviously they can, recreation can consult with the township administration if there's something that may require police presence or other issues that arise. I think it's, nobody's going to know, go to this department or that department, if they're accustomed to doing it one way, or, the police, the police aren't going to know if something's scheduled for a soccer game, or that's just something I would think about.
Right, so why don't we propose some language? We'll propose some language in here that is a little more specific than what we have now. And we'll come back to, we're going to come back to a comprehensive ordinance dealing with all these things. So that's one thing that we'll include. Yeah, Janet.
Okay, great. So moving on to letter J, it talks about the park hours. Right now, it says no one's permitted in the park between the hours of 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., except for permission by the recreation department. Do we want to change this to make it from dawn to dusk? Or I'm sorry, from the other way around, from dusk to dawn, to say that no one's permitted in there? Or do you want to keep it at specific times? We had a little, not trouble, but we had questions about this with the beach over the summer.
Well, I think we're going to address the beaches in a separate, or when we do a comprehensive, fully comprehensive evaluation of the park ordinances, because I think the beaches are a little bit different given the fact that we have fishermen that go onto the beaches and they can't be denied because they have fish and game permits. Our dusk to dawn emergency resolution was more in line to people who were setting up to spend the day at our beaches. And I don't want to get that confused with what Janet is referring to in terms of people utilizing the parks.
Going one step further, I think the mayor is 100% correct. You also have issues where you have lighted basketball courts, lighted
Soccer field.
lighted recreational use, which 10 p.m. is when those recreational uses end. So I would oppose dusk to dawn language based on the fact that why are we lighting basketball courts and tennis courts if that's
Sure. Yeah.
the
100%.
So lighting the basketball courts and tennis courts I saw as the special permission, but no problem leaving it 10 to 7. But I guess just a follow-up question off of that. So from now on, are beaches not considered parks? Are we kind of isolating or separating the two from that?
You can have different beach restrictions in parks. I mean, I think we can spell that out in the ordinance, can't we, Brian?
Yeah, you can spell out facility by facility, the times, things of that nature. I mean, because obviously the facilities are going to vary, and this time of the year, daylight savings time is going to be dark at 5 o'clock, and
Right.
That's when the
30.
lit facilities are going to be, the times are going to have to be.
So maybe the thing is just to have a separate provision for beaches.
Yes.
Parks, they'll keep this 10 to 7.
Yeah, you have the blanket overall, and then you could have more specific times for specific facilities depending upon the nature of the facility.
So why don't we?
So then as a follow-up to that, if for whatever reason we don't cover something in the beach, which I know we are going to redo, would it then default back to what this one stands, what this ordinance states as far as some regulations?
Well, I don't think we have to worry about that as long as we are able to rectify the differences between parks and beaches before Memorial Day of next year, when the beaches are going to be utilized by a greater number of individuals than they will be. Anybody going out there right now is just taking a walk on the beach or fishing, or there's nobody sitting on the beach all day. So I think I'm okay with reverting back and just simply waiting until we're able to come up with an ordinance that addresses the concerns of the neighborhood of Leonardo, of Ideal Beach. Obviously, even tonight we're taking action on implementing some of the things that the Ideal Beach community desired with the security cameras that are being installed over there, not only on the beach but on the opposite of the dune side as well. So I think we can hold off and just revert back while we address the parks themselves as opposed to the beaches.
Okay. So, Janet, is something you added? We didn't talk about.
So, yeah, the next 3 are 3 that we added because we do get questions about this. O being metal detecting, if we want to allow it on township property. These are some regulations that were modeled off of the Monmouth County Park System.
For metal detecting.
It's restricted right now?
In what type of, Janet, can you give me a scenario?
People want to metal detect on the beach primarily. That's where we get. Every now and then we'll get asked for at the fossil beds, actually. But they ask if we can metal detect, if they're allowed to metal detect on any of our beaches or property.
I mean, we get them more than you would think. And so anecdotally, in the past, there used to be this, it was sort of an unwritten rule about not metal detecting on Ideal Beach or Leonardo Beach because of the potential for ordinances. Yeah, some ordinance becoming, I don't have have no idea about the science of that, whether that's really a risk or not. But that was kind of one of those holdover rules that from ever since I can remember, that they always had no metal detecting on the beach. And but we get a lot of requests for it. And I don't think in recent years we've ever really said no to anybody. We just
The amount of digging Ted does over there on Ideal Beach, moving that sand. He's never brought it up to me.
that's Ted.
Yeah.
But I mean, so I think it's good to have something in there that gives us a little bit of a framework of criteria, because yeah, it comes up more than you would imagine.
I mean, I'm not going to stand in the way of enthusiasts and metal detectors. So
Wait till we get sued because somebody hurt themselves.
no,
Um,
at your own risk.
yeah, and I think that's exactly what we.
That on the side.
Yeah, that's a rule.
P and Q, those are obviously because nowadays people are using electronic devices to fly, and so we're, addressing those.
Yes. So P specifically spells out model rockets and radio-controlled model aircraft, saying that we would allow it in designated areas within specific parks. And then Q being drones, and putting a little bit of more stipulations for them to allow, or unless we don't want to allow drones in parks.
Speaking for myself, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Township Committee here. I think that's the rockets obviously understand that, but I think the drone part of it is, there's a lot of people out there that use these drones to get footage of, video footage, pictures. I'm not sure I wouldn't just blanket prohibit drones from being utilized on the beaches. I mean, all drone users have to go, I'm sorry, Ken. All drone users have to go through, technically have to be certified by the FAA. Is that not right?
There are FAA.
You have to get, the operator has to get a license
Yeah.
to operate them. And they have rules about whether they could be over places where there are people versus not people. For example, if you have somebody wanting to fly a drone over a, Pop Warner football game, is that allowed?
I don't even know if you could regulate it because it's in the purview of the FAA.
Well, my concern is, if they're gonna, enforce their flying over an open area as opposed to, residents, anything malfunctions, it drops out of the sky, it's landing on somebody's head, where's that lawsuit? Coming to us.
Yeah. But if the township doesn't have ownership or control of the vehicle,
So what I suggested was saying that it's not permitted in any township park unless it has been, unless we grant them permission. So we're not flat out saying no all the time. So if there are some special circumstances that we would allow it under those only.
I don't know if we talk about requiring a certificate of some, modicum of a certificate of insurance that if it's over a.
Well, you need verification that the person has the proper license, that's for sure.
Which is 0 have.
yeah.
I don't know. Most of these people take that, the people that I know have.
The serious ones?
They take that serious.
I tell you, I
When you buy in the store?
a number of times with someone, you see the drone overhead going,
Yeah.
Jesus, what is that?
That's the concern. If someone's flying in a car, it lands, in the middle of a soccer game or whatever, baseball game, he's going to have someone gets hit by him, what's the risk? And I mean, maybe we need to research a little bit more what the actual rules are of when you get a license.
Yeah.
But we do need to address it somewhere because it's just becoming so common now.
This provision, the way it's drafted, addresses landing and taking off of it, not
The other,
flying over.
just something to consider. My understanding is a lot of people that utilize these, especially realtors, will launch them off public parks to launch them over private areas. So that then is a whole different perspective on that.
One of the things that we're going to discuss at some point soon is that assessors are now using them on a regular basis.
Yeah.
For farmland.
Adjusters.
Particularly for farmland, because, instead of walking 100 acres, they can send up a drone and do it in, 20 minutes, which makes a lot of sense, but yet there are still some privacy concerns about that. And we've not started doing that yet here, but that is something we're going to need to talk about soon.
Even real estate photographers are using drones now, so it's all over.
Yeah,
Wait, does Alex have drone?
he does.
Yes.
His own.
And an FAA license.
You know, Alex, you know, he doesn't have everything. Yeah, so, but that is a use, kind of, yeah, as you say, almost all realtors are using them. The architects are using them to look at roofs of buildings, you know, so you don't have to climb up there to see the condition of the roof. Yeah. So, all right, so we will, you know, kind of tighten this up a little bit and do a little bit of research on if there's more specific actual rules, but we do need to be concerned about the use of these, you know, in the parks. It's becoming so commonplace.
Okay.
So the rest of these are, the rest of this memo has to do with beaches and dunes, which I believe we're doing separately. So I probably think that that's it, unless anyone has any more specific questions.
Anybody have any questions for Janet? All right. Thank you, Janet.
So hopefully we'll try to have an ordinance for your next meeting on this.
Okay.
And we have a discussion item on amendments to chapter 540.
Sam?
Sam was calling you, she said she couldn't log in.
Yeah. I'm here.
Okay.
Okay. Tom?
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you, Sam.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, all right. So, these are, modifications to chapter, we have, to residential calculate lot coverage, typically take the building, the drive.
Hey, Sam?
You're breaking up.
Sam, it seems like,
Seems like you're on Laurel Avenue.
Sam?
Not stopping her.
Don't include pedestrian walkway, in, so, yeah.
Seems like she's here on us.
Sounds like she's on Van Schleck.
Sam?
Sam, it seems like you have a bad connection. I'm going to ask
Hello,
Tony
can
to
you hear
go
me?
through.
Now we can't, but.
I can't hear.
There we go. Okay. Sam, it seems like you have a bad connection. Tony, can you speak to section 540?
Hang on a second.
It's the pavilion. Gazebo. Cabanas.
Yeah, so we didn't have, we've not had in our ordinance a provision on the maximum size of things like cabanas. And, you know, but recently, someone had applied to build one that I believe was in nearly 500 square feet, which, you know, people can live in 500 square feet in New York City, they do it all the time. And so the concern is that, you know, neighbors would, you know, be unhappy with something that large being built on a neighbor's property, and that they could easily be sort of converted to a living unit if they were that size. So what's being proposed is a suggestion that we have some criteria for the size of a cabana, somewhat relative to the size of the property. So the way it's proposed here, I guess this came through a number of issues that have come up with people making these requests, is that so if your lot is from 10,000 to 22,000 square feet, you have a 150 square foot banner, 22,000 to 1 acre, 45,000 square feet is 200 square feet, and over 45,000 square feet is 250. So that at least they have some criteria to utilize when they get these requests for cabanas that are substantial. I mean, they seem like reasonable numbers to me. I don't think anyone could argue that they're too restrictive.
These being built or these being like dropped from like a manufacturer?
I think they've had
A tiny house
I
thing.
think mostly they're built, but we've had a few prefab ones
Yeah.
dropped in.
Interesting.
So if somebody wanted air conditioning in theirs, let's say,
Yeah.
they would have to get a variance.
Variance. You should have a real hard time arguing why you should get one.
Okay.
This shit, things get hot, they get hot.
Yeah, well, you just got out of it. You should be okay.
Okay,
Now we have Township Committee comments.
great. Committeeman Senabrino.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will defer my comments until the following meeting.
Thank you, sir. Committeewoman Snow.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things. I was doing some driving this Sunday, and it was refreshing to see our children in playgrounds and on soccer fields, doing what they're supposed to be doing as kids. So I hope everyone is playing and enjoying themselves and staying safe in that respect. And it brings me to remind people to vote for the open space referendum, because without protecting our land, we can't keep our fields, parks, and farmland. So please vote on the referendum that's on the ballot. And lastly, congratulations to Middletown, because once again, they've been deemed the safest community with populations over 50,000. And this is coming from the FBI Uniform Crime Report. And much of the thanks goes to our amazing police department. So thank you to them. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Committeewoman Snow. Committeeman Heibel.
I'm going to pull my comments.
Deputy Mayor.
I think you're going to probably touch on the crime stats, so I'll
Yeah.
make no comments. Thank you.
I just want to quickly echo and thank Chief Craig Weber in our police department. The FBI ranked us the number one lowest crime statistics in 2019. It's a testament to our chief, our deputy chiefs, and the men and women of our police department. We're incredibly grateful to them, incredibly grateful to live in a town that is not only ranked by organizations. Earlier this year, we were ranked by SafeWise as one of the top 100 safest towns in America, but now the FBI gives us this distinction as well, and we're obviously incredibly proud of that. And once again, just a huge shout out to Craig Weber, our chief, our deputy chiefs, Stefanski, Kaiser, and Bailey, and all of our men and women in uniform that keep us safe each and every day. I mentioned earlier how we obviously we're making upgrades to the Ideal Beach community and the Ideal beaches. And that is one of the resolutions we voted on tonight, to install a camera, which was one of the requests of the neighbors on the beaches, so that the Middletown Police Department is able to monitor over there at all times. Camera system, and because that camera system extends to the concession stands, which is an upgrade to that system. So it's something that is welcomed, and it's not an eyesore. It comes really very beautifully with a giant 50-foot American flag pole. Flag's not 50 feet, but that will sit just adjacent to the walkway at Hudson. So I'm grateful to the Township Committee for making those upgrades over there. I just want to do one quick shout out for the Mayor's 5K, which is virtual this year, unfortunately. It is taking place between October 17th and November 30th. And this year, the charity that it is benefiting is Infinite Love for Kids, which is a local nonprofit that helps families that are sadly dealing and having to leave their jobs and to take care of a sick child. And right now, I think it's John Waltz must be second assistant second assistant deputy. You know, once you get past, you know, you forget who sits in what ranking. But obviously, right now, John Waltz and the Waltz family are dealing with this, and this one's for Luca, and we're going to raise that money for Infinite Love for Kids. I hope you'll participate. The 5K, I expect all the members of the Township Committee to participate this time in the running portion, because you can do it at your leisure over October 17th to November 30th. So, listen, I was like second to last, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
Committee with Bible said to do the full 5.
Oh, in one day or? Oh, perfect.
I've done it last year, but I had to walk with a friend here next to me.
My knee was bad.
So I would ask, please go to runsignup.com/mayor's virtual challenge. That's runsignup.com/mayor's virtual challenge. A portion of those proceeds goes directly to Infinite Love for Kids. So I want to thank the Gorsinger family and everybody that takes part, and this community that really rallies behind that nonprofit, and thank them for all that they're doing. With that being said, I will open it up for public comment. Seeing that there are no members of the public here, I would normally go to them. But since everyone is joining us virtually today, and Heidi, I don't see anybody that is a call-in either. Okay, so we'll continue to use the wave hands up feature of the program. If you'd like to make a comment, we just ask that you state your name and address for the record. Name and address for the record. We ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes. At 4 minutes, I will let you know that you have 1 minute left. And if you can begin to wrap up your comments. So if you'd like to make a comment, again, please feel free to use the hands up feature, and just click that feature right on the WebEx program. Raise hand. Sorry.
Hands up is good.
Hands up, 7 up. That's what I was going to think. Thumbs up, thumbs up. Does any member of the public wish to make a public statement? I'm just looking on here. Colleen, Ted.
You could do that.
This is a problem.
Yeah, no, they don't have their hands up. I'm just,
It doesn't matter.
it's
very blurry.
it's a little bit far, so I can't really see. But I am not seeing, is Don Watson on?
Yes.
Push him off his chair.
Okay. Okay, I'm just making sure that I see everybody on here. No, I'll give one more chance. Any member of the public wishing to make a public statement? Seeing no member of the public stepping forward, move to close public portion and adjourn.
Second.
Committeeman Heiberg.
Yes.
Committeeman Sedambrino.
Yes.
Committeewoman Snell.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fiore.
Yes.
Mayor Perry.
Yes.
Motion carries to adjourn.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bless you.